This is my 7th podcast compiled during the COVID-19 pandemic as an idea about some films that might be worth a watch during the lockdown. And this is my second shot at adult comedies. These 5 are from this century. By adult, I don't mean pornographic, although of necessity there are often sexual references and excessive imbibing of alcohol. Both of these activities seem to be necessary in adult comedies. It seems that we usually enjoy people talking dirty and making fools of themselves. The first film is The Hangover, released in 2009. Doug, who is to be married, and his 3 friends make their way to Las Vegas in Doug's father's expensive Mercedes. They check into a luxury hotel and from their penthouse visit the roof where they have a celebratory drink. And that's it. We next meet Phil, Stu and Alan as they wake up in the morning in the hotel suite in a state of distress. Doug, the man with whom they have gone for the stag night, is not present. Stu has a tooth missing, and there are in the suite, in alphabetical order, a chicken, a baby, and a tiger. They have no memory of what has taken place, and so they have to retrace their steps, at some time finding the Mercedes. They progress into further chaos, and it would be a spoiler to reveal too much. But at least we find out that Stu married a stripper called Jade, whose baby they have, and in order to get Doug back, they have to make a deal with a gang boss. The 3 guys who feature in the film are played by Bradley Cooper, Ed Helms, and, I'm going to have a go at this, Zach Galifianakis. Who apparently became friends during the filming. The gang boss is the wonderful Ken Jeong, who almost always plays manic Asians, in this case claiming to be holding Doug as a hostage against the guys returning a missing $80,000. They know nothing about the money, but fortunately Alan can count cards, and so they are able to win the required amount in the casino. But that's not the end of the tale. It's difficult to make a comedy which works, but in this case they managed it in spades, at least in part due to the intrigue caused by the trailer, which included the tiger. It made money. It cost about $30 million, and at the end of its cinematic run, it had grossed $467 million. The next film is Hot Tub Time Machine from 2010. It is necessary for this movie to keep a track on the characters because, as always in time travel films, there are complications. So we have Lou, who is a fun-loving 40-something, played by Rob Corddry, being a bit depressed. After an attempted suicide, he is hospitalized, which results in his closest friends, Adam, played by John Cusack, and Nick, played by Craig Robinson, being drawn to his bedside. Adam has been recently dumped by his girlfriend, and Nick, who once aspired to be a successful musician, is a henpecked husband in a dead-end job. But having been brought together, they decide to take a trip to the Kodiak Valley ski resort, where they had a great time together as young people. They are accompanied by Jacob, Adam's sister's son, played by Craig Duke. The resort is run down and does not appear to be as they remember it, but anyway, they have a drunken evening culminating in immersion in a hot tub. The next morning they go skiing on crowded slopes, where the skiers appear to be a bit retro, and, surprise, surprise, they find that it is 1986. They discover that to others, and to themselves, in the mirror, they are their younger selves, yet to each other, and to us, they are middle-aged. Jacob still looks the same because he was yet to be born. Although he flickers a bit, and we followers of time travel films know that this means that he may or may not exist in the future. Jacob's mother, Kelly, as a young woman, is also at the resort, but of course does not recognise her son. At one point, the guys meet the hot tub maintenance man, played by Chevy Chase, who warns them that they must reenact the events of their big night in 1986, otherwise they may change the future. Can they do this successfully, particularly since Adam is attracted to April, a music journalist, and Lou gets together with Kelly? So their attempts to make sure that they keep everything the same, even though they have free will, are fun. And there's a running joke which had me laughing out loud at times. This is not a film for the easily offended, but it is a lot of fun. The next comedy is Get Him to the Greek, also released in 2010. Russell Brand has had his day. About 10 years ago he was everywhere, if for no other reason than for his many sexual exploits, which seemed to occupy thousands of words in the tabloids. So here he is in Get Him to the Greek, playing the role of Aldous Snow, an off-the-rails pop star who had previously appeared as a character in the 2008 comedy Forgetting Sarah Marshall. All I can say about that outing is that the title gave some of the critics some fun. But now Aldous is back, and having released a new CD, African Child, could be hot again. So the boss of Pinnacle Records in Los Angeles dispatches Aaron Green, a young talent scout, to London to bring Aldous back to LA for a 10th anniversary concert at the Greek Theatre. Of course, Aldous is unprepared for the trip, and so he and Aaron start off visiting the night spots of London before they finally manage to stagger onto a plane for New York, where Aldous is to appear on a chat show and to sing the title song from African Child. In the event he can't remember it, and so resorts to one of his old favourites, The Clap. It is about just what it sounds like. Thereafter they decide to visit Aldous's father, Jonathan, played by Colm Meaney, with a London accent, in Las Vegas. As we have now learnt, Las Vegas, combined with an excess of almost everything, will result in a disaster, and of course it does. At this point, the boss of Pinnacle Records, played by Sean Combs, arrives, and because Aaron believes that he and his girlfriend have split up, allows himself to be paired with what is described in the critical assessments as a sexually aggressive young woman. So how can it all end? And does it matter? The excitement is in the journey, not in the destination. We move on to Horrible Bosses, which was released in 2011. Some years ago during my movie watching, I noticed that John Francis Daley, who had been an actor in the TV series Bones, had branched out into screenwriting and directing, so he appears twice in this filmography. In Horrible Bosses, he and Jonathan Goldstein rewrote an original script by Michael Markowitz. The premise of the film is that three friends who are having real trouble with their bosses decide that they should kill them. This is a drastic action, but they think they might get away with it if they each off others' bosses. Jason Bateman is Nick, who is overworked, harassed and treated badly by his boss, David Harkin, played by Kevin Spacey, on the promise of promotion which never comes. Charlie Day is Dale, a dental assistant who, despite being engaged to be married, is constantly sexually harassed by his boss, Julia, played by Jennifer Aniston. I know what some of you might be thinking, but men being sexually harassed is a thing, and it's not nice. And Kurt, played by Jason Sudeikis, is constantly frustrated by his stupid, drug-addicted boss Bobby, played by Colin Farrell. After consulting an ex-con, played by Jamie Foxx, they embark on their plan. Firstly, having a look at Bobby's house, where they pinch his phone, but then, when they are creeping about in the Harkin residence, they accidentally drop it, leading Harkin to thinking that Bobby is having an affair with his attractive wife. At this point, things start to go downhill, and when Kurt is sent to observe Julia, she observes him and seduces him. People die, even though it is a comedy, but the guys do not actually murder anyone. So how can it all end? Can't say more. The Wikipedia entry observes that Meghan Markle has a role as a FedEx girl. Lastly, we come to Game Night from 2018. Here we meet John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein again, this time directing the movie and actually rewriting a script by Mark Perez. It has a superficial resemblance to Horrible Bosses, involving three couples who are addicted to board games. They are Max and Annie, played by Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams, Ryan and Sarah, played by Bill Magnuson and Sharon Horgan, and the third couple are Kevin and Michelle, played by Lamorne Morris and Kylie Bunbury. Max and Annie have a neighbour, Gary, who is a former policeman depressed by his divorce from a friend of theirs. When they line up for their weekly game night, their preparations are interrupted by Brooks, Max's brother, played by Carl Chandler. Brooks suggests that their normal evening of board game is replaced by a sort of lime action role-playing game, which will take place in his house, and for which the winner will receive a gift of Brooks's Stingray. Hence, they are not surprised that during their visit to Brooks's house, he is assaulted by interlopers and dragged away into the darkness. What they think is happening is that they now have to find him, and so they give chase. When they enter a bar where Brooks's GPS suggests that he is, they find a pistol, which they believe is a fake, until Annie drops it and shoots Max in the arm. Thereafter they find Brooks, who admits that his wealth comes from selling illegal stuff, and that he is currently dealing with the sale of a Fabergé egg, being chased by the owner and by a man known as the Bulgarian, who is after it. It's complicated, but fun, and it's easier to follow than to describe. There are some laugh-out-loud moments, so well worth a view. So that's it for this week. For us in Spain, the lockdown has eased a bit, and it is evident that people are taking less notice of the government than they have been. At least in part, this is due to the steady reduction in new cases and deaths, here making us less cautious about contact with others. The same thing seems to be happening elsewhere, and so we are all looking forward to a new world. Hence, this may or may not be my last podcast. If we are still locked down next week, I'll compile another. But in the meantime, thanks for listening and keep safe out there.